David's lake cabin was more than wood and stone. It was his sanctuary. Every morning he'd step onto the porch with a steaming cup of coffee, breathing in the crisp pine air while the lake shimmered like glass. Ducks floated lazily across the water, and the sound of the breeze through the trees reminded him why he had chosen this life of simplicity. But even in this paradise, a storm was quietly brewing. The Homeowners Association had a leader, a woman the neighbors quietly called Karen. She was known for her sharp eyes and sharper tongue, always searching for things to correct. At first, David thought she was simply passionate about the neighborhood. He didn't realize how far her obsession would go, or how it would drag him into a battle he never asked for. It began small. One morning, David found a letter in his mailbox, a notice about the way he tied his dock ropes. He sighed, retied them, and moved on. A week later, another letter arrived, this time about the color of his shutters. He repainted, thinking it would be the end of it. But it wasn't. The letters multiplied. One accused him of violating landscaping guidelines because his grass was an inch too tall. Another claimed his garden chairs were out of compliance because they weren't placed neatly enough. Neighbors whispered their own frustrations. Some had been fined for leaving bicycles on porches, others for planting flowers outside the approved pallet. Fear silenced most of them. But David felt something shift inside him. He realized Karen wasn't protecting the neighborhood. She was controlling it. One rainy evening, David sat at his desk in the dim light of a single lamp. Around him, stacks of envelopes lay scattered, each one a reminder of Karen's grip on the neighborhood. His hands hovered over them for a moment before he began sorting carefully, page by page. "This ends now," he muttered to himself. He created binders filled with letters, photographs of his cabin, and testimonies from neighbors who trusted him enough to share their stories. Each document was proof of overreach, of harassment disguised as rules. What had once felt like a losing battle suddenly began to look like a case. For the first time in months, David felt a quiet strength return. He wasn't just defending himself anymore. He was standing for everyone too afraid to fight back. Weeks later, a letter arrived that looked different. It wasn't the cold language of an HOA notice. It was official, sealed with the authority of the court. A U.S. district judge had taken notice of the conflict and requested to review David's evidence personally. David read the letter twice, his hands trembling. Relief and fear mixed inside him. He would finally be heard, but he knew it wouldn't be easy. For days he worked tirelessly, arranging documents into neat piles, highlighting dates and organizing photographs. The cabin that once held only peace now felt like the preparation room for something much bigger. The judge's visit was scheduled at the very place Karen had tried to control, David's own lake cabin. The morning of the meeting, the lake was calm, but David's chest felt heavy. He laid everything on the wooden table, organized binders, photographs, letters spread neatly in rows. When the knock came, he opened the door to the tall figure of the judge. "Mr. David?" the judge asked firmly but kindly. "Yes, sir. Please come in." Inside, the judge removed his coat and sat across the table, his eyes scanning the documents. David spoke carefully, explaining the pattern of harassment, how each notice was less about community care and more about intimidation. The judge nodded slowly, listening, when suddenly, the door swung open with a loud crack. Karen stormed in without invitation, her voice filling the room. "This is our matter, not the court's," she snapped. Her footsteps echoed on the wooden floor as she planted herself beside the table, glaring at David. The judge raised an eyebrow but remained calm. David didn't react with anger. He stayed seated, letting his evidence speak louder than words. One by one, the judge flipped through the papers. Letters filled with unnecessary threats, records of unfair fines, notes from fearful neighbors. Karen interrupted repeatedly, her tone rising, her words spilling over in frustration. But the more she spoke, the less convincing she sounded. What she thought was control now looked like desperation. Finally, the judge closed the binder and looked directly at Karen. His voice was firm, steady, and left no room for argument. Property rights are protected by law. What I see here is not enforcement. It is overreach. Karen's confidence cracked. She opened her mouth to argue, but the words fell flat. For the first time, her authority slipped away in front of someone she couldn't intimidate. David sat quietly, the weight of months lifting from his shoulders. The judge reminded Karen that leadership was about responsibility, not power. The message was clear. The HOA's false control was finished. That evening, David stepped onto his porch. The lake reflected the soft glow of the setting sun, calm and free once again. As he breathed in the fresh air, one thought settled in his mind. When truth stands tall, even the loudest voices are silenced by its weight.